and sisters, so grateful to have you with us here again this evening at this pandemic parish mission. Pray, hope, and don't worry in the midst of this time of crisis, gathering here in St. Casimir's Church in Yonkers, New York. Glad to have you. We're really excited as well because the Lord is doing this work, and He let us know last night by sending a car through the front gates of the church, a little attack from the enemy here trying to drive in, and we're just grateful because God is here this evening, and we're gathered again to pray together. As we enter into this time, just invite you to bring your hearts open to receive all the grace that the Lord has for you.
Salutaris ostia, que celi pandis ostium, per la premunt hostilia, darobus per auxilium, unitrinoque Domino, sit sempiterna gloria, qui vitam sine termino, nobis donet in patria.
Jesus Christ, here and in all your churches throughout the world. And we bless you, because by your holy cross you have redeemed the world.
Brothers and sisters, as we begin to praise the Lord tonight, I invite you to join proclaiming His greatness, rejoicing in His abundant goodness and mercy, and His generosity, the gift of life, the gift of love, the gift of light, the gift of hope that He pours out upon us. Give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that's broken. Great are you, Lord. Let's proclaim that, great are you, Lord. Life. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart light to the darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you. Great are you, Lord. Great are you. Great are you, Lord. I invite you now to pour out your praise to the Lord. To rejoice and give thanks for his abundant mercies and goodness, for his gifts, all the things he pours out upon us. All the earth will shout your praise. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth cry out. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great
Good evening, brothers and sisters again. Grateful to have you here. For those who are maybe just joining us at this pandemic parish mission, we continue, and today I had the luxury that actually a lot of people don't have right now, which is to get out and take a walk in a place, of course, with proper social distancing. And I was walking around a field and I looked out, and just kind of a beautiful day here in Yonkers today, thank God. And little robins are, hopping around in the grass and in the trees, and squirrels are out doing their thing. And in the midst of that little walk, I had a memory from when I was in college, back in Georgia, where I'm from, Augusta, Georgia. And there was an older gentleman who used to be in the military in World War II. His name was Hubert Crawford. And this guy was one of the first Navy SEALs. They were known as the Frogmen. He was tough as nails, and the most, amazing example of what a man could be that I knew, including having shot a rattlesnake inside his house with a .45 Magnum. That's just cool. So Hubert had this amazing transition in his life later on where he encountered the Lord and he encountered Our Lady. And because of that encounter, things just radically went from a life that was centered on himself to a life that was dedicated to intercession for others, and particularly young men. And so he lived in the country down an old dirt road. You'd have to drive out this thing. It was all pot cold and weeds growing up and clay. And out at the end of this road is this old house that had been there for a couple of centuries. And he lived out there and he just prayed. And young men came to this guy. And I remember going out and sitting one time in the late spring, early summer with him. And I'm out there and we're sitting on this bench next to a cross he had put up by a friend, and he had a binder and he just would pray and intercede out there for all these different young men. And at one point I'd sit there and I'd pray a rosary with him, and then we'd just be sitting there in the silence, and it'd get pretty awkward for me pretty quickly. And he just asked me this question once. He said, look out there. And I'm looking at a field, and the field has bushes, some trees, some grass. He's like, look out there. He's like, what do you see? And I'm like thinking, okay, here's the big test. Like, I got to come up with a really amazing answer. And I'm like, some trees? And he's like, yeah, I see the trees too. He's like, but tell me this, how many shades of green do you see out there? And I was just like, had never thought about it. And I look out and I just start trying my best to count shades of green in a country field in Georgia in the summertime. Would never be able to have given you a total number. And he just says, wow, he could have just made it all gray. Doesn't he love us? Doesn't he love us? And last night we heard about the goodness of God from Father Luke. And that memory came to mind of this insight into this wonderful goodness of God. It's abundant, it's more than enough, it's gratuitous. And yet right now, we're not looking out at a green field. We're in fact in a desert, not just liturgically because it's Lent, but globally because we're in a crisis right now that has stopped in their tracks the whole world and sent all of us into places that we never thought we would be. And in the midst of that, you're looking out and you're like, I don't see the goodness. I don't see green, I see a desert. And if you're feeling the weight of this reality, I encourage you to turn to the Psalms. You know, you might think you've come up with a really good way to say that you're angry, but I guarantee you the Psalms have a better way of articulating it. Just go searching, Psalms of Lamentation. And I want to share one with you tonight as part of what we're going to be moving into. This is Psalm 88. And the subtitle of it in the breviary is The Prayer of a Very Sick Person. And it begins, and I won't read all of it, but part of it. It says, Lord my God, I call for help by day. I cry at night before you. Let my prayer come into your presence. Oh, turn your ear to my cry, for my soul is filled with evils. My life is on the brink of the grave. I am reckoned as one in the tomb. I've reached the end of my strength. And it goes on further to say, as for me, Lord, I call to you for help. In the morning my prayer comes before you. Lord, why do you reject me? Why do you hide your face? Wretched, close to death from my youth, I have borne your trials, I am numb. Your fury has swept down upon me. Your terrors have utterly destroyed me. They surround me all the day like a flood. They assail me altogether. Friend and neighbor, you have taken away. My one companion is darkness. That's the word of God. And you may feel that way. You may know someone right now who is at the brink of death. You may have experienced perhaps thousands of people living in single apartments in the city of New York, a solitude that you didn't know was coming your way. Friend and neighbor taken. And what do we do in the midst of a desert? Where do we go in the midst of a desert like this, like something we've never known before? And I want to read just a little section from the Old Testament of the book of Exodus. God's people were led out into this desert. They were led out from slavery into a desert. And I would say, at least I can speak for myself and maybe for you, this desert that I'm in now is leading me out of the slavery of thinking that I was ever really in control. This desert is leading me out of the slavery of thinking that I'm enough in myself. This desert is leading me to discover my poverty, and it's painful, and it's hard, and it's frightening. And God's people, having left Israel after they experienced the joy of that deliverance, shortly after found themselves in that desert. And here they are, and it says they started finding fault with Moses, who was their leader, because there's no water for the people to drink. And they said to him, give us water to drink. Moses said to them, why do you find fault with me? Why do you put the Lord to the proof, to the test? But the people thirsted there for water. You know, maybe you're thirsting right now for the water of intimacy. Maybe you're thirsting for the water of peace. Maybe you're thirsting for the water of human touch, and we're being told, stay away. And it says that Moses cried out to the Lord. He says, what shall I do with this people? They're almost ready to stone me. And they're mad. They are mad. And the Lord said to Moses, pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders, and take in your hand the rod with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on a rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, that the people may drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. Brothers and sisters, I don't know about you, but I need a rock in my desert right now. I need a rock in my desert. And where are we going to find it? Where's that rock that we're looking for now, and all these other illusions of what really was the sturdy rock, the foundation of our lives, has been shattered and taken away. Where's the rock that can give us living water in a desert? And I began praying with this, and I was just reminded, a memory came back from when I was a young child, probably 8 or 9 years old. And there was actually, I don't remember if it was months or some extended period of time, where I had these horrible nightmares. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and it was a kind of thing where it was two different dreams. One was wolves chasing me, the other were snakes that were coming after me. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and maybe a psychologist would tell me it was a psychological something or another. But like times when I'd look around and there was translucent snakes all over my room and all over my bed. And I was paralyzed with fear. And there was times when I'd wake up and I'd feel the breath of that wolf, and I would hear the noise of that animal, and I would see in my bed next to me this translucent thing, whatever this was. Maybe my imagination, maybe half awake, maybe the enemy, Satan, trying to come after me as a kid. I don't know. But I did know that I was just totally paralyzed by fear. And all I could do was cry. Literally. Cry. And maybe that's all you can do right now. And I would cry, and in between tears, I would say, "Daddy, Daddy." And without fail, every time my dad came, and I remember him just wrapping me up in his arms and just squeezing me so tight that my head was pressed up against his chest and I could hear his heart beating. He just said, "It's okay, I'm here. It's okay, I'm here." And those visions, those images would disappear. Maybe right now, where you're at in your life and where many people are, is that we feel like we are surrounded by fears, wolves that are circling your thoughts, anxiety, stress, fears for those whom you love, your parents, your grandparents, fears for your children. How can I provide? I've lost my job. Fear for the future, your school, your vocation, so many things circling inside, stealing your peace, stealing my peace. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need to know that the Father hears the cry of his children. You need to know that the Father hears the cry of his children, and he comes. So the first thing we got to do is we got to cry out. We have to cry out in our powerlessness, in our fear, in our anxiety, in our loneliness, our depression, our discouragement. We got to cry out. We got to cry out for our Father. And then when our Father comes, we need to rest our head. We need to rest our head on the Father's heart. Psalm 62 says, "For God alone my soul waits in silence. From him comes my salvation. He only is my rock and my salvation, my fortress. I shall not be greatly moved." The world's being moved right now by coronavirus. We're being moved. Inasmuch as he is not my rock and he is not my salvation, inasmuch as the Father is not the one whom I'm waiting for in silence, I'm being moved. Inasmuch as I've not made him my fortress in this storm, in this tempest, I'm being moved. And he's calling us to wait upon him in silence, because from the Lord comes your salvation. From the Lord alone. And brothers and sisters, what's the heart of the Father? What is this heart, this beautiful, mysterious heart? This heart of the Father is the heart of his Son Jesus. It's the sacred heart of Jesus. It's that heart that beats with love for each and every one of us. This sacred heart has been sent into this world because you might be thirsting for water, you might be hungering for peace, you might be longing for intimacy in the midst of this trial, for security and all that we're looking for right now, an end to this plague. But more than that, God is thirsting. God is thirsting for your love. God is thirsting to be present to you. Stay away. The fact that the Father's love could not remain distant, but that love would become flesh and dwell among us. And because of the yes of Our Lady, because of Mary's surrendering to that will of the Father, the heart that is always eternally beat in the Trinity, that love became flesh and dwelt among us. And that love is on this altar in the Eucharist. And that heart is on the altar in this Eucharist. And that heart is inviting and crying out to each of us. You know, this heart of Jesus, this heart of Jesus knows whoever you are, wherever you are right now watching this, listening here, He knows your heart. He knows what is in there at this very moment. He sees it, all of it. He knows every tear that a mother and father have shed in darkness while their children weren't watching in these days, wanting to be strong for them. He knows every thought that has passed through the mind of those who have wondered, can I take this? How can I survive this? Will I be next? He knows the thoughts of the elderly who have become paralyzed with the fear that they too will be another number that we're going to read about tomorrow. He knows that. And his heart said, it's never enough for me to be distant from your suffering. It's never enough for me to just look on from the outside. I want in. I want intimacy. And so I'm going to go to the end for love of you. And so that heart was pierced upon the cross, lanced through with love. Lanced through. Not because God was weak, but because He had such a great love for each of us that He said, I'm going to the end for you. And that heart is surrounded by thorns. And just imagine that sacred heart of Jesus. And each of those thorns, each of those sorrows that you carry now from your past, from this present crisis, each of those sorrows piercing His heart, He knows it from the inside. And He is there on that cross with a heart that isn't just pierced, it's not just surrounded by thorns, it's burning, it's on fire. It's on fire with love for you, for me, for all of humanity. And it's that fire that's in the heart of Jesus that says, I'm not going to stay distant from you in this crisis. I'm coming close. I'm coming close. Because I will be with you. I am Emmanuel. This heart is our hope, brothers and sisters. This heart is the home, the resting place where we need to go and we need to bring all that we carry right now and lay our head upon the breast of the Father. Lay our head upon that beating heart and hear it. Hear it. Hear it in the stillness. Hear it here in this gift of the Blessed Sacrament. Hear it in the silence of the morning. Turn off your devices during the day and be still and hear that beating heart. It's constantly telling you about who you really are before the Father, His beloved, the one He longs for. And you know, we were invited by Father Luke last night to trust. In that rephrasing of the last line of our parish mission title, Pray, Hope, Don't Worry, rephrasing that as trust. Why do we trust? We trust because of this divine love that has been manifested in our midst. It's a testimony that he's faithful to the end. It's the sign that he'll never abandon, never walk away, never say enough, never say my good comes before yours, never say I'm going to remain distant. Never. Never. The Father has sent his Son, Jesus Christ, into this world so that we would be able to have hope even in the midst of what looks like a desert. And what happens when you start to live this way? What happens when we begin to trust? What happens when we cry out? When we lay our head upon that heart and listen to it beating with love for each of us. Listen to that beating of the suffering that it knows that's our suffering. What happens? I want to read to you what happens. The prophet Isaiah said in chapter 35, "The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord and the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are fearful of heart, be strong, fear not. Be strong, fear not. Behold, your God will come with vengeance, with the recompense of God. He will come and save you. He will come and save you. For waters shall break forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water." Brothers and sisters, if we will rest in this heart of Jesus, then those wolves that are circling our thoughts right now, they're going to disappear because the darkness can't stand the light. If you will trust in the heart of Jesus, you're going to know joy in the midst of your suffering. Something that's impossible on our own, but something that he makes possible. Because he's God. And if you will drink from this heart, if you will drink from the rock in the desert, then the desert that your life is right now will blossom with life. Will blossom with new life. And brothers and sisters, we're going to look out. We're going to see those robins that were in that field as I walked around it earlier today, and we're going to know that they're a promise that spring's coming. Winter is coming to its end. Spring is on the way. And we're going to be able to look out into that landscape that once before was a desert, and we're going to see this myriad shades of green. And as we look out there, we're going to be in wonder at how good our God is. It's his heart that has been given to each of us as a sign of hope in the midst of this trial that we're walking through. And if we'll draw near to that heart and we'll drink from that, brothers and sisters, we will have peace in the midst of all the uncertainty that unfolds before us in these days and weeks ahead. We're going to be free from being a slave to our anxiety every time that we bring it and place it in the heart of Jesus and allow him to conquer it. We're going to be liberated from the sense that we are alone because we're going to know how intimately close God is to us in the heart of his Son Jesus. Brothers and sisters, we're called, we're invited, each of us, to come and drink the waters of life in the midst of this desert. So as we continue in this mission, we invite you to pray with us, cry out, Even if the only thing that can come forth are tears, cry out. And then rest your head upon the Father's heart and hear it beating with love for you.
Put on my hope in the truth of your promise, and I steady my heart on the ground of your goodness. When I'm bowed down with sorrow, I will lift up your name, and the foxes in the vineyard will not steal my joy, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. Of your promise, and I steady my heart on the ground of your goodness. When I'm bowed down in sorrow, I will lift up your name, and the foxes in the vineyard will not steal my joy, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, yeah. You are good to me, good to me. I lift up my eyes to the hills where my help is found. Your voice fills the night. Raise my head up to hear the sound. When fires burn all around me, I will praise you, my God. And the foxes in the vineyard will not steal my joy, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. Yes, you are. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. Lift up my eyes. I lift up my eyes to the hills where my help is found. And your voice fills the night. Raise my head up to hear the sound. When fires burn all around me, I will praise you, my God. And the foxes in the vineyard will not steal my joy, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. Yes, you are. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. Your goodness, mercy shall follow me all my life. I trust in your promise that your goodness, mercy shall follow me all my life. I trust in your promise. Your goodness, mercy shall follow me all my life. I will trust in your promise. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. laugh